Your friend has got a lot to share.
Welcome to this is the second edition of the Christmas Radio Friends again on the 22nd of December. And I'm remote today. I am actually down in Key Largo just because, Dave influenced me and Bob influenced me and now Ted and everybody else that comes down to Florida. So we had a Wi-Fi, so I figured why not get a hold of you guys. So good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning, Steve.
Oh, good. At least you dropped the Mr. Parker. Oh, God. Dave, what is that? Dave, I heard your daughter this morning on 104, Jagged Little Pam. I like that.
Yes, that's one of her groups she has. She has Sex and Candy is her main group, but she has a side group called it's the Alanis Morissette tribute band, and she goes by the name of Jagged Little Pam there. So she was on Radio 104. We were listening to her today.
I remember, Dave, when you used to go out for lunch and they called you Sex and Candy. You come back with a couple of kids in the car.
Yeah, it's those were the good old days, but not anymore.
She sounds great. She does a whole Alanis Morissette, set.
Yeah, she's a very talented young lady.
Cool.
I was just thinking. I was telling my wife the other day that it's interesting. I had my son worked with us on POP, and then Pam is singing in our old facility, but it's still going on at WDRC, and that's where the Radio 104 is located, and it's located in Jim English's office where the music library used to
just
be.
imagine the smell. Oh my God.
Oh God, but I heard they had to fumigate the room, and then I looked into the production room one time, and that room is totally changed. Both the rooms are totally changed. They're all digital now. Got rid of the tape machines and the big Gates board we had in there, and it's kind of sad.
Blue Hills Avenue, right?
What's that?
You're talking about Blue Hills Avenue.
Yeah, Blue Hills Avenue, at the Blue Hills Avenue location, and it's so I walked around the place. They added on to the back of the building, and that's what
we did that years ago.
Yeah, and Wayne originally wanted to add on to the building, move the production room from the front to the back, because we get every time there's a siren going by, an ambulance going by to Mount Sinai Hospital, the fire engines go by. It's like they were in the studio with us. And I remember Dick McDonough and I doing a spot, and Dick is, going, he has a hard drive, and then the ambulance goes by. We both cracked up. But I mean, it is what
Wayne originally didn't want to add on to the building. We had the sales department where the traffic department is now cramped into this little space. And Buckley came in one day and said, I want you to build an addition. And Wayne didn't want to do it because Wayne had money in the bank, station money, and he was supporting WSCN at the time. And I mean, he was sending checks. They couldn't meet payroll. So WDRC was actually handling the payroll for the stations in Connecticut and WSCN, AM and FM. And Buckley said, no, you're going to do this. So Wayne, Wayne originally built the whole place out there on Blue Hills Avenue. He proceeded to build this thing, and he used up a lot of the money in the bank. And then hard times fell on us. Ratings went down, competition was fierce, and it just got worse and worse. And Wayne was not a happy guy after that.
Yeah, I can see it. I remember when they had the tornado hit Hartford and by Bradley Field.
Windsor in the 90s.
No, that was in 78, I believe.
78 or 79 around there.
Yeah, 70, one of those. And Wayne was coming back from Portland or someplace, and little Shirley comes in the room. She says, our building is leaking. And then I found a couple other leaks down by where Charlie's office was, and it was right along where they had put the new front addition onto on the Blue Hills Avenue location. And we went off the air, got us back on the air, and it was a disaster. It was we didn't realize it was a tornado that hit, but it was the rains were coming down, and we had leaks all over the place.
It got? It was like pitch black outside. I remember looking out the window, you couldn't see anything. It was like middle of the night.
Yeah, and that was the mailman came in and we told him to stay in here. And he says, yeah, he says, gee, the Pope is coming in. I hope this has nothing to do with that. And the Pope was actually flying into Boston, and he was appearing in the United States then. And
Yeah, that was
crazy day.
I think that day was I remember Rob Branham was on the road as a news guy. Everybody turned into a news guy. I was
Well,
actually
Yeah.
Alex and I took the news car. We had the news car there, and we got a quarter of a tank of gas. We're almost operating on fumes. So I said, well, let's go to the gas station, realizing their power was out. And so we did that whole trek. I was on the air doing live reports. And it was funny because I told Charlie, I said, do you want me to do my Herb Morrison approach, or how do you want this delivered? Charlie goes, God, no, don't do that. Don't
Oh, the
do that.
humanity.
Yeah, exactly. And so so Alex and I got out to we're following the Governor Grasso around, and I'm now doing descriptions of the place. And there was a house that had 1/3 of the house outside. Looked like a huge dollhouse. And I mean, you could see the furniture, you could see everything. And I'm on the air, and I'm talking, and he says, "Oh, the humanity of all this." And you know, tongue in cheek, I tried not to laugh, but so what I heard was Corson loved every minute of it. He says, "Wow," he says, "it's good out there. It's a good job you're doing." Charlie's under the desk laughing. I
You
come
know,
back to this.
Dave, that
Okay.
wasn't the first tornado when I was there in '74. We lived on Lake Street in Vernon,
Yeah.
and there was a tornado that touched down. And I don't know whether you guys know where the old where Ted Truden used to be. There was a post office, an old Vernon post office in that area, and it touched down right behind the post office, and it went down Lake Street, and then fortunately for us, it veered off. But I guess they are susceptible to tornadoes in the Hartford area.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Hey, Jim, you got to turn your camera on, by the way.
Oh, I look better this way.
Yeah, I know, but we all. But
Sorry about that. Geez.
yeah, and I mean, when I got back to the station, I said
There
to
he
Charlie, I said, "How was that?" And Charlie just looked at me and he says, "God," he says, "I could have died when you did that, when you were telling me, oh, the humanity." And he said, Corson loved it. He loved the drama of it. And I said,
remember how much trouble we got into, Dave, when we tried to do the election
Oh.
results from the Olympia Diner. That was
oh
geez.
God, yeah, Steve and I were doing at the Olympia Diner in Newington, and we're doing reports on election night. And so they threw it to us. We had nobody in the diner to interview. And so Steve is interviewing me, and I go in this character voice, and yeah, I think Dewey's gonna do the job, and who's the news director then? Dave? I lost you, Steve. I don't have your microphone.
Jim Blycamp, I think, was there.
Yeah, no, but who was doing the reporting? Anyways, the reporter, because he says, I didn't think you guys are going to clown around. I would try to be serious with this. And
What's wrong with that? He expected us to not clown around. We
Yeah,
got
I know.
we got Dean Richards has joined us too versus iPhone. So why don't we do this? We're coming up on just about coming up on 10 o'clock. So why don't we scoot around the room and see who we have so far for this December 22nd of 2023. We got Dave Overson, Jim Harrington, Ron Pell's here. We got Ed Mitchell's here, John Landry, Lee Gordon, Pete Salant's in the house. Ted Dalico with a whole new hairstyle. Still looks like he's riding that motorcycle, and I know he is. Must be
I
keeping
did this
helmet
morning,
on.
yeah.
Yep, and he's we got there's Bob Craig. We got Greg Simonson here, and Steve Parker so far, and we don't know who might sign in, but thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. And I'm not hearing you, Dean. So I got I see you're up here on your iPhone. So check around in your mic and see if because Dean's got some interesting stories, having spent time at DRC, and then he fell asleep and continued pillow talk for the rest of his life. But over at Light 100.5. So welcome everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, don't everybody. Oh, there's Lee Gordon.
Bah humbug.
Oh,
nice
nice
hat.
hat.
Bah humbug.
I used to wear this in the office
The,
at GOP, and some of the ladies did not like it at all.
Well, sometimes
I think this is
I have a picture somewhere when I was Santa Claus and Al Pellegrino was sitting on my lap. So
Well, I have a picture of you as Santa Claus and what's her name? One of the saleswomen as an elf. I'm trying to. No.
Dawn, Gail,
No. It'll come to me.
yes,
Ruby
Gail.
Begonia.
Well, I
O'clock in the
remember
morning.
when I was getting married, and all the there was a snowstorm that day, and they kept asking was I going to be there, and I was a little hesitant about the whole wedding, so I decided to work that day, and I was in the office, and it was so funny because wicked snowstorm outside, which was God going, Steve, not today, but it was hysterical because they had somebody coming in to do a motivational like a seminar that day, and
In the van down by the river.
and it was funny because what they did was they said it was all a setup because it was my wedding day. So they said, how are we going to get Parker involved? And somebody said, just ask for a volunteer.
Right.
and and it was so funny because as it turned out she was a stripper, and it got so far out of control, and it turned out that the women all set it up. All the women in the sales force thought that would be funny, and it would totally be off the air by now for doing it now. But management at one point, because it got a little crazy, they said, we're out of here. We can't be part of this. But we did. We had a lot of fun up there. Holy cow. And only 2 or 3 times that I actually saw that Lee Gordon could go the color of dark purple when he was yelling at me for screwing something up. Dark purple. Oh, a lot of good stuff there. But I think by far the wildest parties were that I obviously don't have the track record you guys do. But what about Christmas parties? We talked a little bit about Christmas promotions and everything last year, but with all the different stations that you worked at, whether they were on site or off site, what about Christmas parties that got a little out of control? Overson always had a good blooper tape going.
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. I would collect all the different one-liners that people would say, or they would be talking about something else, and they'd be making all these comments. And one year, John Landry and I did CBS News, and with Hughes Mudd with 2 D's. Remember that, John? And and so what I did was we were talking about the management, meaning DRC's management taking over the station, because we were leaving Blue Hills downtown Hartford, going to Blue Hills Avenue, and we had tape machines on sale, and like a Bernie's TV and appliance commercial. But I know I would play the guys would make a comment, and I remember Ted Dalicu made a comment, had nothing to do with what we were talking about, and I took his comment and put it in with the blooper tape. I says, so do you think that the management here could do the morning show at on the station? And then Ted comes in with his comment. He says, oh, no, he has no idea what he's talking about. And I think I used to get the guys a little bit worried, because Corson would be in the room listening to this, and Corson would actually think that these guys said these things about him, and we used totally off different comments to go with our questions. And
But we did say those things about him, but we.
yeah, I know, but we didn't have the tape going. So I would totally just scrap that. But yeah, that was one of the tape's comments that I remember putting that together.
That was probably one of the reasons I got fired there. Maybe others.
No, but it was funny because I watched the looks on your faces, and you guys were looking, and you were a little bit worried, because you know how crazy management could have been, and thinking that you actually meant that, and nothing to do with what you were actually saying during the course of the recording. So
Yeah, I know. And I remember when I first started there, and actually, if it weren't for Ron Pell kept giving me encouragement for some reason every time I tried to leave the building. But I do remember one time they had, I wrote a commercial that was definitely, way off color. It was just for fun, and because there's women here, I'm not going to go into all the descriptions of what I said, but it was beyond obscene. And I went in and I said to Corson, I said, I'm just, starting to do spec commercials, and I have one for a furniture store down on the Berlin Turnpike. But I thought if I could just read it to you to get your opinion on it first. And of course, that's the first place I'd go for opinion on copy. So I read this thing to him, and actually he was laughing because it was very filthy. And at the end of it, he goes, you you got to rip that up, babe, you got to rip that up, babe, because if these guys get a hold of it, they really will read that on the air. It was, oh my God. And yeah, some of you definitely.
Wow.
Oh
Chuck Martin is here at 7 o'clock in the morning in LA. Hello, Chuck.
Oh, Chuck is here.
Yeah.
I got up just this early to say Merry Christmas to all my Big D pals.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
Chuck.
Christmas, Chuck.
Merry Christmas to you,
Merry
Chuck.
Christmas, Chuck.
God bless you, Jim.
Yeah, it's funny because there was always I can't remember one time where we didn't have a crazier Christmas party, and it really would get out of control. And even so much, I think after I left the station, I remember a few of us talking about just going back for that party, even though we were working at different places. But Ron, you remember how crazy did the old ad club parties get in downtown Hartford?
And they were, if you remember, they were in the afternoon.
Mm.
And everybody would leave there at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock drunk. I remember those.
They
Yeah.
were so drunk they couldn't see it, and it was radio, TV, and ad agencies and
And
everything.
everybody got in their car and drove away. That's
back
that's
to
the way it
work.
was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Lee
Mad
remembers the wine and cheese parties that.
Oh God,
that,
magic wine
Lou
and cheese
Carey,
parties.
You and 104 of your friends got a wine and
Oh.
cheese party.
Well, those were pretty epic events. I think Jay McSorley met his wife at one of those.
Oh my God.
I think
And,
one salesperson got stopped on the way home, and I think he lost his license for a few months and had to get a driver. I think there was somebody will remain nameless, but if it wasn't a Christmas
yeah.
party, it was something. Remember that?
And he later went to AA and hasn't had a drink in 30 plus years and
Many
has
years.
been quite successful. So
Yeah.
Good for him.
He's in the Villages in Florida now. He moved to the Villages.
McSorley is, yeah.
McSorley, yeah.
The guy
First thing he
Steve's
did-
talking about is this different guy, but
different.
Yeah, no, McSorley was always a pip. McSorley was the only guy that I ever worked with that insisted that I worked for him. And he said, "Well, you tell your client that your boss said that's the way it go." Yeah.
With the accent. Yeah, he had quite an accent.
One of the Christmas parties we had just moved. I think it was the first Christmas party we had at Blue Hills Avenue. And what I liked about it was we didn't have to run the board, because usually at Christmas time we would have the office party, and then one of us would go in and relieve the guy, whoever was on the board working with the jock, and we would stay there maybe 15 minutes, and then the board operator would come back. We'd give everybody a chance. But a lot of times Steve's dad would want to do a production in the middle of this whole thing, and Charlie comes up to me, he says, "I got to cut something." I says, "Oh, come on, Charlie. I'm half in the bag at this point." And so I go to the production room, and we're now at Blue Hills Avenue, and I put a drink on the turntable, and I accidentally hit the turntable. The drink is going around, spilling all over the turntable. Wayne Mulligan was chief engineer then. He's in there. He's laughing his ass off. And it was horrible. And I got so drunk that I wound up sleeping at the station. And it was a midnight guy who did midnights, took me to the couch we had in the kitchen area. I laid on that, fell asleep, woke up, and the midnight guy is still there, but now he's in different clothes. I looked at him. I said, please tell me you just changed your clothes. He says, oh no, I went home. I was out for 4 hours, and I was supposed to teach a splicing editing class that night, and Len Thomas covered for me, and because I was afraid I was going to cut myself, and
Using sharps.
and I called Mary Lou up, and I said to her, I says, I said, I'll be home in a little bit. She says, oh, you went out with the class? I says, no, I never made it to class. And so I got home, and, she had dinner waiting for me and everything, and it was all cold by then. But yeah, that was my worst experience there at the Christmas party.
Now, what about some of you other guys? What about Pete? You've worked at a few different stations. Any Christmas parties that stick out, whether they were in the
Nah,
building or outside?
worked for cheap bastards who never threw Christmas parties.
Russ Gilmore.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And no, I don't think in New Haven we ever had any. I mean, maybe we throw a couple of joints in the back of the car and just go driving around.
That's a party. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. But no, we never had any.
Most of our parties were in January because they were traded.
Right.
Sounds like
We did the
us
same
with
thing, Lee.
Carson.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Carson.
So,
Carson too.
which worked out fine because, there's enough crap to do in December. And nothing to do in January. So, a week or two into January, and we're at some, at Cook's Tavern or someplace where we traded out the Christmas party, and everybody has a good time, and it's, one extra party for the year. It was.
You
We
guys
used to do
remember
that
when
DRC
Corson had it?
also, Lee.
Didn't Corson have his like in March?
No, it was in January.
January.
late
No.
January.
This is before you, Ron. I'm telling
Really?
you, this he put it way back. We were brushing up against Easter,
That's a late Christmas party.
Oh my God! And he did it with all the trimmings. We went out
Oh,
there,
yeah.
right? Nothing is lit up. Do you remember this, Chuck?
Yeah, I sure do.
All of
The-
his house was
Lavish.
He met you at the
Lavish.
door with a smoking jacket, a red smoking jacket.
Yeah, I was there
No,
that one too.
Oh, it was all the bells and whistles, but it was just Easter,
Put his Easter jacket on. It's funny.
It was
he had
lavish.
he had a German Shepherd named Chance, and he used to say, instead of give peace a chance, give chance a piece. Of course, only Carson would have a German Shepherd.
There's one that we created. I think I told this before. Ted, I think you were with us. This was a 77, 78. I was at YZ at the time. And a few of us met at the last National Bank downstairs. And Jay Clark joined us from across the street at TIC. And he was dressed as Santa Claus. And McDonough was with us. I don't know if you were with us.
I was, yes, I was there for that, I think. Yes.
And we invaded the DRC office party.
Yes.
We drove over there in the TIC van.
And that's when we popped the champagne in the conference room. I think you were there too, Ron. When we
I
hit
was
the
there.
champagne hit the ceiling. We were pouring champagne all over the ceiling, shook up the bottle and stuff. It was
No. That was a different one. We never made it
Oh.
into the party. Corson came out and saw 3 or 4 of us, and he said, "You're gonna have to leave this party. This is a private party. You guys don't work here anymore." So he threw us out.
I remember Jay with the Santa hat on going around the station the whole time.
Yeah.
That's
No,
very fascinating.
we never made it in. Corson got wind that we were there, and he threw us out. So this probably was a couple of, because Ron, I don't think you were there at that time.
No, I don't remember that one.
No, 77, 78, I want to say.
I was there then. I just don't remember.
We had some wonderful Christmas parties here in Philly. Had a couple of stations that I've worked at. I mean, they would rent out sections of restaurants, but a very subdued crowd. Nothing as crazy as back in those days in Hartford, because it was a different kind of demo, and a different kind of atmosphere. So, but every station that I've worked at pretty much has had Christmas parties of some sort, and mostly in various restaurants as such. But I think the ones internally at the radio stations were probably the best, because you could just really kind of let it all hang out.
When I worked in New York, they had Christmas parties, but it was hard to get everybody together because everybody lived all over. People lived in Connecticut, people lived in New Jersey, people lived all over the place, and always it was an effort to get people into the city again to have the party. So they had them, but they weren't well attended. They weren't as much fun as the Christmas party at Easter time. Although I'm glad to hear, by the way, that Corson improved as the years went on, because Ron said they had him in January, so he was.
Yeah, most of the time in January, we would find a willing trade partner, and yeah. So there was one place called oh hell, it's up by the Griffin Office Center in north, just go
Oh
north
yeah,
on Blue Hills Avenue. What was the name of that place, Steve?
that
It
was
was DeLuca's for a while.
DeLuca's, and then it changed to something by the pond or something.
Yeah, right.
The
We
water.
must have
the
had 5 or 6
river
parties
something.
there. It was all the way up there. It was on this little lake in an office center, and we had about 5 or 6 of the parties there because they would always come back. This guy who owned the place. Matter of fact, I remember. Well, never mind. I'm not going to go there. But anyway, we had a lot of parties there.
You have to be careful about the things you remember now.
Yeah, right.
Now, Ed Mitchell, when we were in St. Louis, were you there for the Christmas in 77 or 76, 77? Or did you come after that? I remember, I wasn't sure if you were there at that time.
ASD?
Yeah, KSD.
I think I got there 76. I don't remember a damn thing about the party though. Was it a good
Yeah,
one?
well, that was a Christmas party in 76, and it was at an Italian restaurant in the old section of St. Louis for a while. So it was kind of a rundown neighborhood, and they had this little scrawny security guard, this guy wearing a cap that was too big for his head and his shirt hanging down. He weighed about 85 pounds, and he's a security guard, and he didn't have any weapons or anything. He's walking you from the parking lot to the restaurant entrance. And one of the guys that was doing sports with Ron Morgan in the morning, the big football player guy, he said, "I feel so much safer now." And the guy was like 300 pounds. He said, "Now that we have security over here, I feel a lot better." But at that party, the portions were so small that everybody at the table was passing him to this football guy because he's used to eating, 5,000, 10,000 calories a meal, and they give him a little scallop with a little piece of bacon on top of it, and that's the appetizer. It's like, okay, so everybody's collecting food, and then Tom Straw, who was the PD at the time, he and I were going on tables around to other tables when people were up dancing, and we'd take the full bottles of wine and put the empty bottles on the table, and then come back and drink at our table.
But Ted, isn't that the way it is when you go to the fancier the restaurant, the smaller the portion?
Smaller portions.
Portions, yeah, absolutely. And the higher the price.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
That's right.
Cost more.
It's all about the Michelin. It's all about the Michelin stars.
Yeah.
When
Trade menu.
Ed Newsom was a general manager,
Ed Newsom, right? Fast
and
Eddie.
there was a fun guy. I loved him. But I remember when they flew me in for the interview to impress me, they took us out to dinner at Tony's.
That was both.
It was that real high end. I wonder if he did it there. That was one where you went upstairs and the waiters would never turn
that's
their
the place, right? At Tony's.
place. Yeah, because boy, if anybody knew how to throw a party and spend money, it was Ed Newsom.
Oh yeah, he was a big spender. Took out in his Cadillac. He had that big Cadillac Eldorado, and we went driving around. But actually, Tom Straw and his wife, Patty, and I, and Ed Newsom and his wife went out to dinner one time. We all packed into his Eldorado, and this is right shortly after I got there. And the same kind of thing. He's going around to impress. He's throwing money around stuff. We're going out restaurants, good meals. Let's go back to the house and have a cocktail. So we go back to his house, and we're in this massive living room. He's got a cocktail table that's about the size of a small dining room, just a cocktail table. And he's sitting on the floor pouring scotch and drinks in our hands. And of course, you're there for a while. You got to go to the bathroom. So Tom went to the bathroom first, and then he came back, and he said to me, "You've got to go to the bathroom." He said, "You've got to go to the bathroom. Tell me what you think." So I walk into the bathroom, and it's got gold sconces with lights on side the mirror. It's red flocked wallpaper. Remember the fuzzy wallpaper? And the toilet seat has fur on it. Not the top, the seat. I'm looking at this and I said, "What am I supposed to do with this?" This is the biggest thing I've ever seen. I came back out, and I gave Tom a nudge. I said, I didn't know if I should whiz in it or F it, we just couldn't keep it in the rest of the night, just pouring scotch and getting home. I mean, it was unreal. He was a big party guy, Ed Newsom. Fast Eddie.
He used to call me up into his office on Fridays. He would, especially when I first got there, and it would be a Friday afternoon at about 5 o'clock, and he'd get on the phone and he'd yell, and I was Scarborough there at Scarborough. He'd go, "Get your butt in my office now!" And I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And I go upstairs, and he's sitting there with Straw, the program director, and he said to me, "Your turn to pour." And I'm not a drinker. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So he said, "Over there, bar, you pour." I go, "Okay, how much?" He goes, "Two fingers."
Right.
And he holds up four.
Well,
I got so bombed, I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
drive home. It was a Dave Overson story. He said, "You need to call your wife and tell her to come get you." I had just moved there. I didn't know my phone number. We didn't have mobiles then. 2 weeks later, it's another one of those Scarborough, get your butt up here. This time I was smart enough. I wrote my phone number down on my hand so I could have him call. I went down to my office. I barfed several times. I was so drunk, I actually dropped my keys down the elevator shaft in that building.
Oh.
We got TJ Lambert's coming all the way in from New Mexico. Good morning, TJ.
TJ.
TJ, good
Morning,
morning.
Ted.
guys. How we doing?
Good.
Well,
When I
Bob, I
I see you
think this
got-
is the first time I've ever seen you
Bob, I see you got
in a
the
baseball cap.
Hey Bob, I see you got the memo on the beanie cap.
Yes, I got that. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
TJ, I bet you probably headed up a couple of pretty good Christmas parties yourself.
Oh Lord. I POP used to have a pretty good Christmas party, and Lord knows none of us should have driven home. That's for sure.
Richards.
Especially John Shazinski.
Oh my! Hey, hi Lee.
It was,
Yep.
and I can remember I think I was with Greg, because Greg was with me at KISS. I was only there a short time until I had the option to go on the air and do part-time overnights if the janitor couldn't get in. But it was like minimum wage, and Debbie Gould gave me the option of either going on the air or still working for her, and I took the on-air gig. But I just said I'll do my 5 hours overnight, just once an hour. I get to go KISS Mix 95.7 KISS FM in the middle of 60 minutes of nonstop hits. You always stop to tell them that you're nonstop. But I remember we would do some Christmas parties and regular parties. You had to know how to party if you worked at KISS, because we had all the younger demos. We had, and they all would have insane nightclub parties. And I remember the one that I went to as Santa Claus. And for some reason, I had the thought of, well, instead of putting stuffing in there and everything, I'll put on my down ski jacket. Well, when I was in there dancing with the rest of them on the floor, I could all of a sudden, I'm losing my consciousness because of all the heat inside there. And I went outside, and I kid you not, it was so cold outside. When I sat down in my car, smoke literally came up inside there. But yeah, and you had to know how to party, and you had to still make it in for the sales meeting the next morning. I remember we had one gal that was definitely a wild one that came in the next day. Hey, how did you wear the same outfit since last night? You look great. Hey, Dean Richards appeared. Dean, how long were you at Big D? How long were you at Big D before you went over to 100.5?
Almost 9 years, about 8.5 years. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 91Q to California, then back again to DRC for about 8.5 years, and then 28 years doing Pillow Talk at Light 100.5.
And that was one of those asinine decisions they had to make to start, cutting talent across the country. Guys like you, 28 years. And then who was 93.7?
Ted. I was up against Ted for a long time.
Yeah, we were right.
Yeah.
And I was doing my.
I was getting nervous there, Ted.
Well, I was doing my Venus flytrap thing. I was at that point I could give a rat's tail about being on that station, because I knew I was going to be there very long. So when they said no, you go up against Dean Richards doing the Pillow Talk thing, but we're going to be playing different music, but we want adult people. So they're playing pop music and they want the adults. And meanwhile, people are calling for Barbra Streisand. I can't play Barbra Streisand. That's not going to happen. So I figured, well, if they want something that's outrageous, then I'm going to be outrageous. And I was doing my close into the mic Venus flytrap kind of deal.
Right.
You can actually smell the incense in the room. And at one point, the PD came in. What the heck was his name? I can't remember his name now, but decent young guy. He came in. He said, "Our consultant says you're doing great. Well, you're good for him. I don't know what he's on, but you know what I'm doing.
It's really great to see all you guys, and I want to thank you for being an inspiration. If I didn't work with you, you certainly influenced me, and it's great to see Ted again after all these years, and Jim Harrington. I haven't seen you since you used to tape your show at 91Q and head for Boston on Saturday. That's the last time I talked to you, I think.
That was a secret.
Oh, okay. There was, wasn't it?
It had a 20-minute cart that I used to use.
Yeah, the thing was bigger than the studio almost.
And I used to pray it wouldn't break, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, it's great to see you.
And you too. Where are you? What's the backdrop? Where are you at?
The reflecting pool at Balboa Park in San Diego, one of my favorite places.
Oh,
beautiful.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There now?
Beautiful.
Are you in
No,
San
I'm in
Diego now?
Torrington, Connecticut right now.
Well,
yeah.
Oh, this time of year,
you're there in spirit.
Wearing about 4 layers of clothes.
Yeah,
Wishing I were in San Diego.
Bob Craig looks like he's ready to hit the ski slopes. He's so bundled up. Can you
I
not?
would, but there's no snow here. We haven't had measurable snow in 2 years in Philadelphia. And
Oh,
Snow?
no
What's
snow.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to
Hey.
the LA guys.
Right.
My one memory of a DRC Christmas party, you saw both sides of the man we were all familiar with, but I remember Mr. Corson welcoming me my first DRC Christmas party. He said, "Come on in, Dean, help yourself," and blah blah blah. And he was very welcoming. And of course, we saw the other side of that also.
Sort of in the Inside Edition news team, coast to coast. They saw
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Steve, fill me in on this. Which station was 100.5 in Hartford?
WRCH.
Light.
Yeah. 100.5.
Oh, RCH became light. Okay.
Yeah, and I remember from the Sound to the Berkshires, from wherever you live, they had that back in the old RCH days, you know, when they were playing Montevani all the time. But I think
I remember when they flipped format from a Schilke. I think at that time it was Schilke, and
Right.
there were no threat to DRC, and then they flipped to this AC format, and it really sounded good. And I forgot who I told, maybe it was Byron. I said, "We're in trouble.
Yeah,
we're in trouble. They're going to kill us."
You were in trouble.
And
How
it
about 104 was playing
Yeah.
the same stuff, and
Right.
and there were songs that 104's consultant said you can't play because RCH is playing them. So
Yeah.
that just hastened the demise.
Yeah, you know,
I went from there mornings there to that's when I went out to St. Louis from there, from RCH. I was
God bless
working with
the
Paul
insultants.
Pinto there.
I mean, freaking Bob Craig started the whole damn thing with the soft rock to drive everybody.
That's right.
You
He
know?
did.
Blame Bob. Blame Bob.
This is BB day. Blame
What about Bob?
What about
Once that
Bob?
started, everybody felt it. I remember radio, whatever, Magic 104. When we were Magic, we owned that world of Women 2554. And then all of a sudden, you know, Light 100.5 is tweaking it.
That was it.
They had also YZ in its final days was doing the soft rock. And then 93.7 came on with the mix. We watched our ratings go down. We were going down the tube. And at one point, it was like, when do you fire the consultant who keeps telling you now that you're at the bottom? But it was like we were just like, okay, now what else?
Remember when 93.7 when Mix started the first year they did all weather because they couldn't get the ownership straightened out. So when David Perlman owned the station, and for a year they broadcast NOAA weather. And then I remember when they finally went to that format, and I remember it was about 1988 or 89, and they flipped formats, and I said, "This is going to be the number one station in the market." And sure enough, within one book, they went to number one.
Because they
were certainly top of mind after playing the weather all those years. Everybody knew who they were, though.
Well, talking to Perlman about it, because I worked for them for a while, then for a couple of years, and talking to Perlman about it, he said we started the weather because everybody was tuning into the weather channel on TV, and everybody up there was interested in weather. So he started sucking people into the weather, and then when he switched to the music format, it was all music, no commercials, because they had no sponsors.
Right.
They had a couple of people doing sponsorship in the morning show. Other than that, after that, it was all music. And I was doing nights there. And it was like, okay, you just drop in a one-liner periodically, and then he'd throw more music on. And it was kind of one of the easiest things in the world to do, but
Yeah,
boring as
Perlman
hell.
was a smart guy. He was a smart guy.
Well, he had
You
the
know?
first Christmas party at his house for that station, and he gave all the air talent. I mean, the salespeople that finally started bringing in money, he gave them bonuses. He gave the air talent sweatshirts. So we have a sweatshirt with Mix 93.7. I have two of them because he gave one for Patty too. And I crossed it out. I put the zero in and put the line through it, like because I got fired there. I said, screw this. I'm putting the line through on sweatshirt. That was his
Wow.
big deal. And I remember Neil Jackson saying, great, we work our asses off, we get numbers, and what do we get? A freaking sweatshirt.
Yeah.
That was it. It was really interesting. I think, Ron, maybe you can tell part of one story, but what about those trips to New York in the
Boy.
limos? Maybe you might have to edit it, but I don't know if any of them wouldn't need
The
editing.
one, yeah, there was one, and I'll just leave it at this. Corson picked up a couple of hookers off the street, threw them into the. I swear to God, threw them into the. We threw them into the limo that we were in, and we went back to the New York Hilton. I'm going to stop it there. I
That's where
swear,
they tidied up the room.
That was a crazy. One thing he did, he always wanted to recognize the sales department, and he wanted to go to New York and party just like anybody else. And he had a girlfriend in New York. Anyway, we would every year he would load us all into limo, and we'd head down to New York. About 6 or 8 of us, and that was the one year that stood out. Suddenly, these two women are in the like, who are you? He's paying me very well. Okay.
That'll be edited.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where I only got to go once, but the stories I heard afterwards didn't Rob stay in one of the limos one time and just tell him to keep driving around because he was hammered and he didn't want to get out anywhere?
Yeah, I think I kind of remember that. Yes, I remember that. And yeah, Rob was a very understated drunk. When Rob would get, and Rob was not a big drinker, so when Rob would drink too much, he would just kind of collapse into himself. But something would happen, and he'd go a little crazy. But boy, those are in the '70s, the late '70s, early '80s. Those are good times.
Oh yeah, and I mean, one time we had one client, Wilson Seafood, and the only way
Tom Wilson. Oh
Tom
my
Wilson
gosh.
and his wife Mai, and the only way you could ever get a check from him was to drink with him.
That's right.
I was there one morning with
true story.
I was with Rob, and it was about 10 or 11 in the morning. We're standing there in the kitchen with Tom, and he's pouring scotch or something. Have a drink. And I said, no, I don't drink. And Brandon leans over and goes, yes, you do.
You have to drink.
I think one time Rob had to pull over to the side of the road and sleep for a few hours.
It's true.
Got that check back.
He couldn't drive because Tom would give you a glass of scotch, a full glass of scotch, and he'd give you, and he was a great seafood chef, and a piping hot bowl of the greatest clam chowder you'd ever have. But you couldn't get a check because you went there because he was always late for late payment. He was a Brad advertiser, and you couldn't get a check from him until you drank a glass or two of scotch. And then that's true. Rob would go out to the car and literally go to sleep for a few hours because he was drunk. It was 11 o'clock in the morning.
Of course you drink. Sure, why not? Oh my God, that's like
it is very. Huh? I think it's very clear that I left Hartford too soon. You boys in the late '70s, early '80s did some party.
But
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We
but
did.
TJ, everybody knew that when you were there, you were like, from a chick standpoint, TJ, you probably had just about all of the female listeners over there and the female followers over there. You were a fairly you were one of those guys that everybody just said he was a he was a hunk.
Oh yeah,
TJ,
right.
There was two girls that used to show up at DRC at the window when we were at 750 Main. I was doing middays. Then there were two girls that would show up in the window. One of them had long dark hair, and the other was like shorter hair, and they were both 17, something like that. And one of them, she held up sneakers that she was wearing that had TJ on her sneakers. Now I don't know what she did to get that award, TJ, but I've been in big trouble. He stuck around.
Yeah, but back in those days, they didn't have like maps on their phones, so they went to the wrong station.
And you guys, I bet you I bet you if we got the whole POP staff together, the POP good guys, if we got them together, there's got to be enough Blue Danube stories to kind of close.
Oh, I got
Oh, Lord.
one Blue Danube story. Actually, I think it was already whatever the hell it was called after the Blue Danube.
Oh yeah.
But one of the guys was getting married, and we had a stag party over there when it was it was a strip club, and there was on a bunch of us were all sitting around the bar, and even though it's a strip club, there was on TV. It was like a Leave It to Beaver reunion show, and
Leave It to Beaver at a strip club.
we were all watching Leave It to Beaver instead of watching
Beaver.
Oh yeah.
Fill in the blank.
Oh yeah. I think it was Graham. What was her father's name?
Bill
Winters.
Yeah, Bill Winters. It was either, I don't remember which one, but I do remember talking to Ray Dunaway, and I think Bill may have saved Ray's life. I think they went out drinking at the Blue Danube and went back to POP, and one of them literally was just choking on his own vomit, and the other guy saved them. They were that far gone. I can remember too, Ron. Probably it was New England School of Broadcasting.
NBI.
Yep, and I remember
New England Broadcasting Institute.
I remember they had a party there with Buckley and everything else, and we had to carry Jerry Christopher home. We had to hide Jerry from Buckley because and Mary Luciano and I got him back to his house in Cromwell. Remember putting him in the bed, and a few minutes later we heard a huge crash and some barbells fell on the floor. But, oh yeah, that was really, really, really brutal. But now, Dean, with all the years that you spent at RCH, was all that when was that just bullshit, like corporate just taking people out? I mean, obviously, your ratings were great. You were doing a good job. What were they doing then?
Do it as far as what?
As far
specifically?
As how did you disappear? You were doing great. I mean, and were they?
Well, it was the beginning of COVID, and they the day that they let me go. They let 99 other people go coast to coast, including somebody I think in Boston who had been on the air at Magic for about 38 years.
Oh God!
A lady who did middays. If I don't check my facts, but yeah, I was one of 100 people, along with Nancy Barrow and Lisa Gold, that were shown the door that day. But it was basically COVID and trim the sails kind of thing.
Yeah, it was. It was bad. I mean, I just remember there was a lot of sad faces that day because they just went through, and you could do that. It's like when stations have HR. HR can fire everybody. It doesn't matter, because.
But for me, it was like the Food Network. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 step away from your workstations, and I said that's it. And I said if I can hang in for a year financially, I'll go play golf, and I've been doing that ever since. And I retired a year later, so I was very lucky. I've been very lucky, and I got a lot of great stories, and hopefully in the weeks to come, I can share them with you. And I think it's time for me to leave those. Happy holidays to everybody.
You got a promo for your stories, and then you say happy holidays.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, right. We'll see you next time. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
To see everybody.
Can I jump in here a minute here? You were saying how, blame everything on Bob Craig. And I can remember a few times that if we didn't like our lunch, we'd blame it on Bob Craig because it was lunchtime and we weren't having what he was saying on the air. So what the hell? We just figure we'll blame Bob Craig. Another thing is talking about Christmas in Waves in New Haven, and Pete was my night man there. And they didn't give Christmas presents, but Mo Monahan, because there was the team of Monahan, Cops, Dan Cops, he was really in the background there. He didn't say much. But Mo gave me for Christmas, he said, listen, we're not giving bonuses, but here I want to give you this. And it was a certificate for $250 for a stereo store in New Haven. Can't even remember the name of it. Well, lo and behold, this was at Christmas time. So in February, I had time to go and get my stereo system. The store went bankrupt.
I hear.
My Christmas present. But, at Big D, my first encounter with Dick Corson, I've had many encounters with Dick Corson, but and this isn't even my favorite one, but it's at Christmas time. So he's coming in, and everyone told me, you got to stay away from this madman. And so I did my best. Well, I'm on the FM. I'm doing a show in the afternoon on FM. And you know how when you come in, the FM was the first one as you round the corner. And I saw him walk by, and then he looked in a quick one at me in the studio, and then he did another one, turned around, and now he's coming. And I said, "Oh God, here it comes." Opens up the door, and Dick McDonough is in with me. I'm talking with the Prince. So he says, "Listen, this is Christmas time. Do you know how to relate to your audience?" Dick always had these great things. Do you know about what your audience is thinking about at this time? No. Well, no, you have to relate to them. It's Christmas time. Everybody's looking for what they want to get in their present. You have to relate. You got to find out what it is that you think your listeners have on their mind to get for Christmas. Now, when you say that and that particular gift that they get it, you know what that relates to? Do you know what that relates to? Ratings. And then he asked McDonough, he said, "What about you? What do you think that a car? No, that's wrong. That's too big. The average person doesn't buy a car." And he's going through this tirade, and he walks out the door. Now, this is my first encounter with Corson. And he walks out the door. I look at Dick. I said, "What in the high hell just happened here?" He said, "If this is your first one, there's many more to come." Many more to come. And a quick story here, guys, about parties. Uh, there's been a few parties, but one of the best ones that I can remember was in Los Angeles at KHJ. My second book came in, and God has shed His grace on me at that KHJ story. So, boy, what a blessing that was. However, the second party we had, our promotion director got the Beach Boys to come in. Now we were in Martoni's, a big restaurant in LA for all DJs, record promoters, movie stars, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, we have a separate banquet room, and we're having a party. It's a beautiful party, catered all 9 yards, Italian restaurant. Ha ha ha. So anyway, the Beach Boys come in. Now, when KHJ first went on the air, they had a promo that was playing on TV, and it was the Beach Boys doing. In the morning, it's Robert W. Morgan. In the afternoon, the real Don Steele. They did the whole thing. So anyway, they recreated that, and it was when you wake up in the morning, we're going to hand you the keys. As you wake up with the new Rick keys. And if that's not enough, you get a lot of commotion in the middle of your day with old Bobby Ocean. And in the afternoon, you got in your car, you have a show with the new Banana Joe. I can't remember the words and everything, but that was one heck of a highlight to a Christmas party. I mean, we're all half in the bag by the time they got there. And of course, everyone's running out in the back doing a hot little number there. So by the time the Beach Boys got on, I mean, we had a hell of a time. It was one of those Christmas parties that really you can't forget. It was one to remember. So.
If there was ever going to be a fifth Beach Boy,
Did you say
a fifth Beach Boy, I'd nominate you.
Did you say the party was at Martoni's?
Martoni's, yeah, Martoni's, and it was
my second home when I was in the record business.
Oh yeah. Boy, I'll tell you what a place that was. I got dragged out of there. I got taken out of there in a wheelbarrow more than once.
Oh please! And Sal was a great piece of work, man, and he loved all of us and he took care of us. He was a great guy.
Great guy. Great guy.
It's like it was like Johnny at the Palm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
You
I
know,
still want my stereo. I still want my stereo.
yeah, but Ron, I think, has the all-time story of a bankrupt company. Maybe I'm wrong, but Ron remembers that little place down in Meriden, and he had to clear the place out, didn't you, Ron?
Oh, Brandsmart.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Corson used to use these places as his own personal piggy bank. And he used to love tech equipment and stuff. And they opened up this place called Brandsmart in Meriden. And I think there's still a couple around, but it was a chain. Didn't do real well, but we had a big trade there. And I opened the account up and anyway, I remember they were doing okay, and then suddenly they weren't doing okay. And I get a call from the manager one day. He says, "We're closing the store tomorrow. We're going out of business." And they owed us a lot of money in trade. They probably found $30,000-$40,000 in trade. So I go running into Corson's office. I said, "I just got a call from Joe at Brandsmore." He said, "Yeah, what's the matter?" I said, "They're going out of business." He said, "What? Get the van right now. Get the van." And literally, we drove down to Brandsmart, and he just loaded up the van with as much stuff as he could put in there. Stereo equipment, radios, anything he could get his hands on.
Now, Jim, you went to quite a few stops after you went to Big D. What about you? You must remember some of these gatherings.
Yeah, mine were actually subdued compared to a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys were single. I was married when I was 23, and I'm still married to the same woman.
And if your wife finds out, oh,
it's an endurance test on her part.
Amen.
But I heard that, Chuck. But I guess we're talking about guys who appreciated jocks. There was a guy named Ted Atkins. He used to work, I think, at KHJ before your time.
Yep.
And Ted he came from the programming side. He was a jock, program director. Then he became general manager. They call him Captain Showbiz when he was in Pittsburgh at TAE. And he loved jocks. We were appreciated. You talked about bonuses. Yeah, he was one of these guys that made sure that the talent and the sales got bonuses. Not the discrimination between the two parts of. I believe me, we all work with guys. Pardon?
Yeah, but he was a smart guy to do that.
He was.
Yeah, but Jim, he was a programmer at heart, right?
Yeah, he was.
He was.
Yeah.
He appreciated us. I couldn't say that when I was at KDK. Not so much. Westinghouse was a good company, to work for. They call them Group W. They had a certain appreciation. They paid a decent salary to their talent, but when I got into like iHeart, I don't know who was it that was saying that. Dean was talking about how they laid everybody off at a certain time of year, and I think iHeart started that, didn't they? I mean, they got into this routine where at the end of the end of the year, just before Christmas, they would just wipe out a bunch of people, unceremoniously, whether it was Christmas or not. I think it was owned by Scrooge.
Well,
but as far as parties go, I mean, when I was at TAE, he had great parties. When I was at KDK, I had good parties, but they were never as wild as the parties that my friends. I did leave Hartford too early, I think, because they improved. They got better.
Jim and I started on the same day at DRC. Him and I started on the same day. And I think Dick Haddad did too, didn't he? I can't remember. I know you and I did.
I think he came, I came back a second time. And he came, I think he came after.
I see.
Haddad was there. Haddad was there when I came in 70. Haddad was doing the all-night show, so I think he got there in 69.
I think you're right, Bob. And then Ron talking about Meriden, my hometown. I'm a Meriden boy.
I'm living there now.
And also, you are. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, for a short time. I'm building a house in Cheshire, but I'm in
wow.
in Meriden.
Wow, man, that's my roots. And also, Jim says how he was married at the time, not the only one. But this last June, my wife and I celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Bravo.
And we've been together for 64 years since 7th grade in junior high school when she
Wow.
begged me to be her boyfriend.
Long-term commitment.
Yeah, long-term commitment. God bless
Less than
her
a minute, Steve.
What do you mean?
Less than a minute.
I'm under. You're worried about this? Okay. All right. Let me do this. I'm gonna kill the recording. But please, guys, feel free to hang on. Let's just do that, and let's just one more time go around the room. We have Ted Dalek, who just had a checkout. Let's see. TJ had a takeoff. Let's see who else we've got here. We've got Ron Pell is here. Chuck Martin's here. Let's see, Dave Overson, who's telling me to wrap it up. Ed Mitchell, Jim Harrington, John Landry, Lee Gordon, Pete Salant, Bob Craig. Nice turnout. Greg Simonson sharing some good stories. Everybody shared some good stories. Anybody else that we didn't cover? That John Landry's been very quiet, and he probably has been sworn to secrecy on most of the stories. So, but yeah, thanks everybody. Feel free to hang out in the Zoom room, but we've got to make it easier for Dave to edit. So, Merry Christmas.
God
Merry
bless you
Christmas.
all.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Your friend has got a lot to share.